The red dust of Mars swirled around Captain Do Young's boots as he walked toward the dig site. The morning sun cast long shadows across the valley, where his team had been working for the past 3 months. This morning felt different. The air sensors in his suit beeped steadily, but he barely noticed them anymore. "Captain, you need to see this right away." Haynul's voice crackled through his helmet radio. The xenorchaeologist's usually calm voice had an edge of excitement that made Du Young walk faster. He found Haynul kneeling next to a dark opening in the rock face. Their excavation lights lit up the entrance to what looked like an artificial tunnel. The walls were too smooth, too perfect to be natural. "We found it early this morning," Haynul said, pointing his light into the darkness. "The dating system says these walls are over 50,000 years old." Du Young stepped closer, his boots crunching on the rocky ground. "Any signs of who built it?" "That's the interesting part." Haynul stood up and brushed red dust from his suit's knees. "The material isn't like anything we've seen before. It's not Martian." 4 other team members joined them, their lights creating a bright circle around the tunnel entrance. The beam of Haynul's light caught something that sparkled deep inside. Du Young squinted, trying to see better. "Let's go in," he said. "Standard formation. Kita, you stay here and keep radio contact." The tunnel was wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. Their boots echoed against the floor, the sound strange and hollow in the thin Martian atmosphere inside their suits. After about 50 meters, the tunnel opened into a large room. "Look at the walls," Haynul whispered, though there was no need to whisper on Mars. The walls were covered in what looked like computer panels, but unlike anything made on Earth. Crystals of different colors were set into the walls in patterns. Some still glowed faintly, giving off a pale blue light. "It's a data storage room," said Haynul, moving closer to one wall. "These crystals, they're like their version of hard drives." Do Young touched one of the crystals. It pulsed brighter at his touch, and symbols appeared in the air above it. They floated like smoke, glowing and shifting. "Can you read any of it?" Du Young asked. Haynul pulled out his translation device. "Some of it. It's similar to writing we found on Europa. Give me a minute." The room hummed softly as Haynul worked. The other team members spread out, taking samples and pictures. Du Young felt his heart beating faster. This was the biggest find in human history, proof of an advanced alien civilization on Mars. "Captain," Haynul's voice shook slightly. "I got something. It's a warning." "About what?" "About Earth." Haynul looked up from his device. "They left a message about Earth. The translation isn't perfect, but they're saying Earth is dangerous. Not because of humans, but because of something else." Do Young moved closer to see the floating symbols. "Can you get more detail?" "Parts of it are damaged, but..." Haynul worked his device again. "Here's one clear part. The 3rd planet is restricted. They guard something worse. And there's more. References to other civilizations finding the same thing." The room suddenly felt colder. Du Young looked at the glowing crystals, thinking about what this meant. "Keep working on the translation. I need to call Earth Command." As he walked back to the tunnel entrance, Du Young couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just stumbled onto something much bigger than an alien archaeological site. The word guard kept repeating in his mind. Who were they? And what could be so bad that it needed to be guarded? Back in the main room, Haynul called out, "Captain, there's more." The message, it repeats, over and over, like they really wanted to make sure future civilizations would find it. Do Young stopped at the tunnel entrance and looked back at the glowing room. Suddenly, all of human history seemed different. Every war, every advancement, every step of evolution, had it all been leading to something else, something they were meant to guard. The red dust of Mars swirled outside, and for the first time in his life, Earth seemed like a stranger place than this alien world. Jin-A stared at her computer screen until her eyes hurt. For 2 weeks straight, She had been comparing data from different space missions. As Earth's top research specialist in alien languages, she hadn't slept much since the Mars discovery. "Look at this again," she said, pointing to her screen. Commander Ta-Wan leaned over her shoulder in the busy control room of the UN Space Command. "These warnings about Earth aren't just on Mars," Jin-A explained. "They're everywhere. We just didn't connect them before." She pulled up images from different missions. "Here's one from the ruins on Europa." She clicked through more pictures. "And here's another from that strange satellite we found near Venus. And look at this one from the asteroid belt." Tai-Wan frowned. "They all say the same thing. Almost exactly the same." Jin-A pushed her coffee cup aside and opened a new file. "Every advanced alien civilization we found traces of, they all disappeared after reaching a certain point in their development. And they all left the same warning about Earth." The control room buzzed with activity around them. On the main screen, live footage showed Du Young's team still working in the Mars site. They had found more rooms, more crystals, more warnings. "Show me the timeline," Ta-Wan said. Jin-A pulled up a chart. "The oldest warning we found is from the Venus satellite, about 100,000 years old. The newest is from Mars, about 50,000 years old. In between, we found 6 other civilizations that left the same message. 8 different alien civilizations, all saying Earth is guarding something dangerous." Ta-Wan shook his head. "Why didn't we find these warnings before?" "Because we weren't looking for them." Jin-A opened another file. "We found pieces over the years, but they were in different languages, different formats. It wasn't until we found the Mars site that we could translate them properly." A new message popped up on her screen. It was from Hey Newell on Mars. They had found another data room. Jin-A read quickly, then sat back in her chair. "Commander, they found something else. The Mars civilization didn't just leave a warning. They left pictures." She opened the new files. Strange symbols and diagrams filled the screen. "They're showing how they found Earth, how they studied us. Look at these dates. They watched us develop. They watched us evolve." "Are you saying they guided our evolution?" Ta-Wan asked. "No." Jin-A zoomed in on one image. "I'm saying they designed us. All of us. Everything that makes us human. Our aggression, our creativity, our ability to adapt. It wasn't random. We were engineered to be guardians." The control room seemed to get quieter. On the main screen, Du Young's team was pulling more crystals from the walls. "There's more," Jin-A said. "The Mars civilization didn't die out like we thought. They didn't disappear like the others." She pulled up the last image they had sent. "They destroyed themselves. On purpose. Because they thought it was the only way to make sure their warning would be found." Tai-Wan was quiet for a long moment. "How many people know about this?" "Just the core team. 20 people, maybe." Jin-A looked at her screen again. "But Commander, we need to move fast. These civilizations, they all left something else too. A prediction." "About what?" "About when it would wake up. Whatever we're guarding. They knew when it would try to break free." Jin-A pulled up the final calculation. "According to their math, it's happening now. This year." The main screen flickered as another message came in from Mars. Du Young's team had found something else in the deepest room. Something that made Jin-A's hands shake as she opened the file. It was a picture of Earth, taken 50,000 years ago. But it wasn't the Earth they knew. In this picture, something dark moved under the oceans, something huge. Something that was supposed to stay asleep. "Commander," Jin-A said quietly, "I think we need to call the UN Security Council. Right now." The UN Security Council room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. Du Young had just returned from Mars, and now he stood next to Hey Newell at the front of the room. Their discovery had brought together leaders from every major nation. "What you're about to see will change how we think about human history," Du Young said. He nodded to Hey Newell, who started the presentation. The first image showed a DNA strand, but it wasn't normal. Parts of it glowed with strange patterns. "This is human DNA," Haynul explained, pointing to the image. "But look at these sections. They're not natural. Someone changed them, made them better, stronger." The room stayed quiet, but Du Young saw people leaning forward in their seats. "The Mars civilization left us their research notes," Haynul continued. "They worked with 7 other alien species. Together, they changed early humans. They made us into what we are today." He showed the next image. It was a cave painting, but not one anyone had seen before. It showed early humans fighting something huge and dark. "They didn't just make us stronger," Du Young said. "They made us aggressive, warlike, but not because they feared us, because they needed us." Jin-A stepped forward from her seat. "Show them what we found this morning." Haynul nodded and changed the image. Now they saw a series of brain scans. "These are human brains compared to other species. See these parts that light up? They're unique to humans. No other species has them." "What do they do?" someone asked. "They make us dream," Haynul said. "They let us create art, music, stories. They help us imagine things that don't exist. And most importantly," he paused, "they protect us from psychic attacks." The room burst into whispers. Du Young waited for them to quiet down. "Everything that makes us human was carefully designed," he said. "Our anger, our creativity, our stubbornness, even our dreams. They're all weapons." The next image showed a map of Earth from 50,000 years ago. Strange energy readings covered the planet like a web. "Humans aren't just random beings who evolved on Earth," Du Young explained. "We're guardians, created to protect something, to keep it locked away." "What exactly are we guarding?" a council member asked. Du Young looked at Haynul, who nodded, and showed the final image. It was taken from under the Pacific Ocean. Something massive moved in the darkness. The image was blurry, but they could see it was alive. And it was ancient. "We don't know exactly what it is," Du Young said, "but the aliens who made us called it a world ender. It came from another dimension. It destroyed countless worlds before they trapped it here. And we're supposed to guard it." Someone asked. "How?" "We already do," Jin-A said, standing up. "Think about it. Humans never stop fighting, never stop creating, never give up. These aren't flaws, they're features. We were made to be the perfect guards." Haynul changed to the next slide. It showed ancient temples, old paintings, and modern buildings. "Everything we build, everything we create, it all follows patterns we don't even notice. Patterns that strengthen the prison. Our religions, our music, our art, they're all based on mathematical formulas the aliens built into our minds," Du Young explained. "We've been maintaining the prison without knowing it, for thousands of years." The room was silent again. Du Young looked at each face, seeing the same realization hit them all. Everything they knew about human history had just changed. "But now we have a problem," he said. "The thing we're guarding is waking up, and for the first time in human history, we need to do our job consciously, on purpose." Haynul showed one last image. It was a simple message, left by the Mars civilization. "We made you strong. We made you fierce. We made you never give up. Now you know why." Outside the UN building, the sun was setting. Somewhere deep under the Pacific Ocean, something stirred in its ancient prison, and humanity was about to face the purpose they were created for. Sun Mei's hands flew across her keyboard as new data poured in from seismic stations across the Pacific Ocean. Red warning lights flashed on her screens in the underground monitoring facility. "It's moving," she said into her headset. "All stations, confirm your readings." 20 different voices responded, all reporting the same thing. Something was disturbing the deep ocean floor, something big. General Sangho stood behind her, watching the main screen. Colored lines jumped and twisted, showing earthquake patterns that had never been seen before. "How long?" he asked. Maybe an hour before it reaches the surface, Sun Mai said. She pulled up a 3D map of the Pacific Ocean floor. A massive shape moved through the depths, leaving a trail of disturbed earth behind it. The general picked up his secure phone. "Get me Commander Ta-1. Now." In another part of the facility, Du Young and He Newell studied data from the Mars crystals. They looked up as Ta-1 rushed past their door. "It's starting," he called out to them. "Coming your way. Sun Mai needs you both." They grabbed their tablets and ran to the monitoring room. The main screen now showed a giant red spot moving under the ocean, heading east. "Look at these patterns," Sun Mai said, pointing to her screen. "They match exactly what the Mars civilization predicted. Energy readings, movement patterns, everything." Newell pulled out the translated warnings. They said it would try to break free through the weakest point in the dimensional walls. That's why they put it under the ocean. Water helps keep the walls strong. "How do we stop it?" General Sang-ho asked. "We don't stop it," Du Young said. "We contain it, like we've been doing for thousands of years without knowing it." He opened a file on his tablet. Every major civilization in human history built monuments and temples near oceans. The pyramids, Easter Island statues, ancient Japanese temples, they all strengthened the dimensional walls through their geometry. "But that's not enough anymore," Sun Mai said. More red lights flashed on her screen. "The walls are cracking. We need something stronger." Jin A burst into the room, holding a new translation. "I found something. The Mars crystals. They didn't just tell us about the threat. They told us how to fight it." Everyone gathered around as she pulled up the files. "Human brains produce a specific type of energy when we focus together. That's why we build churches, temples, concert halls, places where people gather and focus their thoughts together." "Are you saying we can fight this thing with thoughts?" General Sang-ho looked skeptical. "Not just thoughts," He Newell said. "Understanding, willpower, determination, the things that make humans special. The aliens engineered these traits into us specifically for this purpose." The floor trembled slightly. On the main screen, the red spot grew larger. "How many people do we need?" the general asked. "All of them," Jin A said. "Every human on Earth. But first, they need to know the truth." General Sang-ho picked up his phone again. "Get me the UN Secretary General and all major world leaders. It's time." Do Young looked at the screen, watching the ancient horror rise from its prison. "How do we tell 7 billion people they need to fight a monster with their minds?" "We tell them the truth," Sun Mai said, still typing. "That everything we are, everything we've built, was preparing us for this moment." Alarms started blaring. New readings appeared on the screens. "It's accelerating," Sun Mai reported. "Rising faster now. And..." She paused, looking at a new reading. "It's trying to broadcast something. Some kind of psychic signal. Can you block it?" Ta-1 asked. "We don't have to," He Newell said, checking his data. "Look at the readings. Human brains are naturally blocking it. The aliens built that defense into us." General Sang-ho nodded to his communications officer. "Send the alert. All channels, all languages, all countries. Tell them everything." As the message went out, the thing in the Pacific Ocean rose toward the surface, ready to face the guardians it had been imprisoned by for so long. The question was, would humanity be ready to face it? He Newell's hands shook as he decoded the last set of Mars crystals. The images they showed made his blood run cold. Behind him, Du Young and Jin A watched the holographic display light up with scenes of destruction from other worlds. "This is what happened to the Centauri system," He Newell said, pointing to a planet being torn apart. "The entity consumed 3 inhabited worlds there before they could stop it." The room was filled with screens showing news broadcasts from around the world. Leaders everywhere were telling people about the threat. Some people panicked, but most stayed surprisingly calm. "Look at this part," Jin A said, moving closer to the crystal display. The entity doesn't just destroy worlds. It feeds on consciousness itself. It eats thoughts, memories, dreams. Do Young checked his tablet as more data came in from Sunmi's monitoring station. The water pressure around it is dropping. We have maybe 6 hours before it reaches the surface. New images appeared from the crystal. They showed how the 8 alien civilizations had worked together to trap the entity. They tried everything, Haynul explained. Advanced weapons, energy fields, nothing worked. Then they found Earth. The hologram showed ancient Earth with its deep oceans and strong magnetic field. They realized Earth was perfect. The ocean depths would slow it down. The planet's magnetic field would contain its psychic powers. They just needed guardians. Us, Du Young said quietly. Yes. Jin A pulled up more translations. They took early humans and changed us, made us stronger. They gave us art and music because these create specific energy patterns that help keep the entity trapped. They made us aggressive so we would never stop fighting, never give up. The building shook slightly. On the main screen, Sunmi's sensors showed the entity moving closer to the surface. Here's the important part, Haynul said, pointing to new symbols. The entity has one weakness. It can't understand human emotions. Our feelings confuse and weaken it. That's why they made us so emotional. Du Young asked. Yes. Love, hate, joy, anger. The entity can't process these things. In its dimension, these feelings don't exist. Jin A looked at her screen. That's also why it couldn't control us like it controlled other species. Our emotions protect us. Suddenly, all the phones in the room started ringing at once. General Sangho's voice came through the speakers. It's starting, he said. The entity is trying to broadcast its thoughts worldwide. But something strange is happening. They rushed to the monitoring room. Sun Mai sat at her station, watching as data poured in. People aren't being affected, she said, amazed. The entity is trying to control human minds, but it can't get through. Our brains are literally built to resist it. Haynul checked the Mars data again. The aliens engineered our brains to work like shields. Every human thought creates a pattern that helps maintain the prison. And now we know why they made us dream. Jin A added. Dreams strengthen our mental shields. Every night, while we sleep, we're actually fighting it without knowing. New alarms started ringing. The entity was less than a mile from the surface now. There's more in the crystals, Haynul said, reading quickly. The aliens didn't just make us guardians. They made us weapons. Human consciousness, when focused together, can create energy the entity can't fight. Do Young looked at the world map on the main screen. Red dots showed where people were gathering. In churches, temples, concert halls, stadiums. That's why humans always build places to gather, he said. We're naturally drawn to create spaces that strengthen our power. But will it be enough? Sun Mai asked, watching her sensors. Jin A pointed to the final message from the Mars civilization. They believed in us. They said humans were their greatest creation. The perfect guardians. The only species strong enough, stubborn enough, and creative enough to keep fighting forever. The room fell quiet as they watched the ocean surface start to bubble. The time had come to prove the aliens right. The Pacific Ocean boiled. Dark clouds gathered above the churning water as the entity made its first move. In the command center, Sunmi's sensors lit up like Christmas trees. It's attacking, she shouted. Major cities first: Tokyo, Seoul, Sydney, Los Angeles. On the giant screens around them, they watched as the entity sent out its first psychic attack. Dark waves of energy rolled across the ocean, heading for land. But something unexpected happened. Look at the readings, Jin A said, pointing to her screen. The attacks are bouncing off. Human minds are reflecting them back. Do Young grabbed his phone as reports came in from around the Pacific Rim. No one's being controlled. People feel pressure in their heads, but that's all. Our brains really are designed to fight this thing. The entity rose higher, breaking the ocean's surface. It was massive, bigger than a city, but somehow hard to look at. Its shape kept changing, like smoke in the wind. It's trying something else, Haynul warned, watching the Mars crystal readings. A different kind of attack. The entity sent out a new wave of energy. This time, it targeted memories. People in coastal cities suddenly started forgetting things. But again, human minds fought back. Amazing, Sunmai said, checking her data. When people start forgetting, they get angry. The anger makes them remember. The aliens built that response into us. In Los Angeles, millions of people felt the entity try to steal their memories. But instead of giving in, they got mad. They fought back. Their anger created a wall of mental energy that the entity couldn't break through. The same thing's happening in Tokyo, Duyum reported. People aren't running. They're staying put and fighting back. They don't even know how they're doing it. General Sang-ho walked in, looking at the screens. What about the gathering places? Are they working? Better than we hoped, Jin-A said. She showed him a map of energy readings. Every church, temple, and stadium is glowing with protective energy. People are naturally creating defensive patterns just by being together. The entity rose fully out of the water now. It was like a mountain of darkness, but it couldn't seem to keep one shape. Human minds were affecting it, making it unstable. It's trying a third attack, Haynul warned. This one's aimed at children. Everyone held their breath, waiting. But instead of panic, they heard laughter through the radio reports. The children, Sunmai said in wonder. They're not afraid. Their imaginations are actually hurting the entity. On the screens, they could see it. Where adults fought with anger and determination, children fought with creativity and dreams. Their minds created patterns the entity couldn't understand. Of course, Jin-A said, checking the Mars data. Children dream more than adults. Their minds are more flexible, more creative. The aliens made sure human children would be especially powerful against psychic attacks. The entity pulled back, retreating slightly into the ocean. Its dark shape flickered like a bad TV signal. It's weakening, Du-Young said. All those minds fighting back at once. It's never faced anything like this before. But then the entity changed tactics. Instead of attacking minds, it started attacking the ocean floor. Earthquakes shook the Pacific Rim. Physical attacks, General Sang-ho said grimly. That's next. Get everyone away from the coasts. And contact the military. All countries. We need to show this thing that humans can fight with more than just minds. As they prepared for the next phase, Haynul studied the Mars crystals one last time. He found a message they had missed before. Look at this, he said. The aliens left one more note about humans. It says, they are our greatest creation, not because they are perfect, but because they never stop trying. Even when they fail, they get back up. This is what makes them the perfect guardians. Outside, the sky grew darker as the entity gathered its strength for another attack. But this time, humanity was ready. They knew what they were, why they were made, and what they had to do. The real battle was about to begin. The world changed in a single day. Every TV channel, radio station, and phone showed the same message. The truth about humanity's purpose. But instead of chaos, something remarkable happened. Look at these responses, Jin-A said, reading global reports. People aren't panicking. They're organizing. The command center's main screen showed crowds gathering in cities worldwide. In New York's Central Park, 1 million people assembled to create a mental barrier. In Beijing, ancient temples filled with people joining their thoughts together. The Mars crystals were right. Haynul said, humans naturally know what to do. It's built into our DNA. Do-Young watched as more reports came in. In Rio de Janeiro, samba schools turned their music into weapons, their rhythms strengthening the dimensional walls. In Mumbai, Bollywood movies played on giant screens, the shared emotions of millions of viewers creating protective energy. Every culture, Sun Mai said in wonder. Every form of art and music. They're all different ways of fighting this thing. General Sang Ho entered the room with new orders. The entity is changing tactics. It's trying to break through where human population is lowest, the poles. We've got that covered, Commander Taiwan said, pointing to his screen. Research stations in Antarctica are broadcasting human music, art, and literature at full power. The entity can't stand it. Jin A studied new data from her sensors. Our creativity hurts it the most. Stories, songs, paintings, they create energy patterns that damage its form. That's why the aliens made us so imaginative. Across the world, people found their own ways to fight. Rock concerts became power stations of protective energy. Soccer stadiums turned into fortresses of human emotion. Libraries broadcast their stories into the sky, creating shields of human imagination. Something's happening in Europe, Sun Mei called out. The main screen shifted to show massive crowds in ancient cities. They're gathering at old cathedral sites. Hainul explained, places where humans have gathered for centuries. The emotional energy there is incredibly strong. Do Young checked his tablet as new readings came in. The entity is weakening. All this human activity is pushing it back into its prison. But then the creature tried something new. It sent out a wave of despair, trying to make people give up. It's learning, Jin A warned. It's figured out that hopelessness can weaken us. That's when they saw humanity's greatest strength. In every city, town, and village, people reached out to help each other. Strangers shared food. Enemies set aside old fights. Children taught adults how to keep hoping. This is incredible, Sun Mai said. Every act of kindness creates a burst of energy that hurts the entity. Human goodness is actually a weapon. The command center screens filled with images from around the world. In Paris, artists painted huge murals that pulsed with protective power. In Cape Town, choirs sang songs that strengthened the prison walls. In Tokyo, Anon studios worked nonstop, creating stories that generated shields of pure imagination. The aliens didn't just make us fighters. Hainul realized, reading new translations. They made us healers too. Every time we help each other, we get stronger. General Sang Ho received a call from the UN Security Council. All countries agree. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth is working together. Jin A looked up from her computer. We're not just fighting the entity anymore. We're showing it something it's never seen before: unity. Outside the command center, the entity raged in the Pacific, its dark form flickering as it faced something no other species had ever managed: a humanity that knew its purpose and stood together. Send out new instructions, Du Yun ordered. Tell everyone to keep doing what they're doing. Every song, every story, every act of kindness, it all helps. We're not just 7 billion individuals anymore. We're one species, fighting together. The sun began to rise over the Pacific, its light catching the entity's writhing form. For the first time since it broke free, the creature looked afraid. It had never faced guardians like this before. The entity made its final move at dawn. It rose fully from the Pacific Ocean, its massive dark form blocking out the sun. In the command center, every alarm went off at once. It's putting everything it has into one last attack. Sun Li shouted over the noise. Her screen showed massive energy waves spreading across the globe. Hanul rushed in with new translations from the Mars crystals. This is it, the moment they prepared us for. The entity is trying to break the dimensional walls completely. The creature's attack hit every mind on Earth at once. People everywhere felt crushing pressure in their heads. But something unexpected happened, again. Look at these readings, Jin A pointed to her screen. Every human mind is connecting. We're linking together naturally. Do Young watched in amazement as new data poured in. It's like we've been practicing for this our whole history. Every war, every peace treaty, every shared song and story, it was all training. Around the world, people felt the connection growing. Mothers in Mumbai shared strength with teachers in Toronto. Children in Cairo linked minds with students in Sydney. Farmers in Brazil connected with workers in Beijing. Humanity was becoming one mind. Now we know why the aliens made us so different from each other, Haynul said. All our different cultures, languages, and ways of thinking, they make us stronger when we come together. The entity struck again, trying to break the human chain. But everywhere it attacked, it found humans helping each other stay strong. Energy readings are off the charts, Sunmai reported. Her machines could barely keep up. Every human on Earth is fighting together. Even people who are asleep are helping. Their dreams are strengthening our defense. In the command center, General Sang-ho received calls from military bases worldwide. But no weapons were firing. Instead, soldiers joined hands with civilians, adding their strength to the global shield. The entity's changing, Jin-A warned, watching her screens. It's trying to take physical form, to become something we can understand, and fear. The dark mass in the Pacific twisted and changed. It became every monster from every human nightmare. But that was its mistake. It's pulling these forms from our minds, Haynul realized. But our fears, we've been fighting them all our lives. Through stories, through art, through helping each other overcome them. Do-young understood suddenly. That's why humans tell scary stories. Why we face our fears in books and movies. We've been practicing beating monsters our whole existence. The entity changed faster now, becoming dragons, demons, aliens, every frightening thing humans had ever imagined. But for each form it took, humans had stories about heroes defeating it. It's weakening, Sunmay called out. All our practice facing fears, it's actually working. Around the world, people felt stronger, braver. Every scary story they'd ever heard, every fear they'd ever faced, had prepared them for this moment. The entity made one last try. It became darkness itself, trying to bring eternal night to Earth. But humans had conquered that fear long ago, when they first made fire. This is amazing, Jin-A said, reading her data. Every campfire story, every lullaby about not fearing the dark, they were all preparing us to face this moment. Haynul found the final message in the Mars crystals. When the time comes, humanity will face its greatest fear together. And in that moment, they will discover they were never really afraid. The entity's form began to break apart. The combined will of 7 billion human minds pushed it back toward its prison. Every dream, every song, every story ever told added to humanity's strength. Keep pushing. Do-young called through the global communication system. Every human thought makes us stronger. Every shared fear makes us braver. We are the final guardian. All of us, together. The sun rose higher, its light breaking through the entity's fading darkness. Humanity had faced its greatest test, and they had faced it the way they faced everything. Together, never giving up, turning their fears into strength. 1 month after the battle, Captain Do-young stood on the Mars base again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Representatives from every Earth nation worked together, building a new message chamber in the Red Rocks. The walls are almost ready, Haynul said, checking the crystal panels they had made. Earth scientists had learned how to create them using the Mars civilization's notes. Jin-A walked in, carrying the first message crystal they would leave. It's different from the old warning, she said. This one tells our story. The crystal glowed as she placed it in the wall. Its light was bright and steady, unlike the desperate flickering of the ancient warnings they had found here. Let me check the translation, Haynul said. He activated the crystal, and holographic words appeared in the air. To those who find this message, we are humanity, the guardians of Earth. We were created to protect the galaxy from a darkness that consumed worlds. Our creators made us strong, fierce, and determined. They built into us the power to dream, to create, to feel deeply. What they didn't know was that they also gave us the power to unite. Do Young nodded as he read. The words were being copied to similar chambers built on every planet and moon they could reach. The next civilization to achieve space travel would find their message everywhere. Sun Mi's voice came through their radios from Earth. The entity is fully contained. The new prison is stronger than ever. Every human thought adds another layer to its walls. The world had changed since the battle. Humans had discovered they could still feel the connection they had formed. Not as strongly as during the fight, but enough to know they were never truly alone. The best part, Jin A said, placing another crystal, is how everything changed on Earth. All the old fights seem small now. Everyone remembers how it felt to stand together. Hanul activated the second crystal. New words appeared. We no longer fear the darkness between stars. We have faced our greatest fears and learned that together we are stronger than any terror. We are not perfect. We still argue, still disagree, but we remember how it feels to stand as one. Through the base's windows, they could see Earth shining like a blue jewel. The same view that had inspired the Mars civilization to choose humans as guardians. The third crystal is ready, Du Young said. This one held humanity's promise to the future. He placed it carefully in the wall. To any civilization that achieves space travel, you do not need to fear Earth. We stand guard willingly. We keep the darkness contained not through technology, but through our unity, through our stories, our songs, our endless determination to protect not just ourselves, but all who wish to explore the stars. The chamber hummed with power as all three crystals glowed together. Their light was visible even in the Martian daylight. Commander Ta Wun's voice came from the Earth base. The UN just confirmed. The new space program is approved. We're expanding to other star systems, taking our message further. And the entity? Hanul asked. Quiet, Ta Wun replied. Every time it stirs, human creativity surges. People write more stories, make more art, share more dreams. The prison grows stronger each day. Do Young looked at the final crystal in his hands. The most important message, he placed it in the center of the wall. We are humanity. We were made to be guardians, but we chose to be protectors. We stand watch not from duty, but from choice. The galaxy is safer because we choose to make it so. You who find this message, you are welcome among the stars. We will keep them safe for you. The chamber was complete. Their message would last for thousands of years, telling future civilizations that Earth was not a place to fear, but a world of guardians who chose their role. As they prepared to return to Earth, Du Young looked one last time at the crystals. They glowed with steady, bright light. Not a warning anymore, but a promise. Humanity had found its purpose, and they would keep that promise forever.